χρυσά άπαντα.
Μυθώδες ηχεί, αλλά ανήσυχος ημί. Τι σε αισθιοφέρον ταύτα?
Είσαι εκ των στρατιωτών, οι φαρπαγέντα άπαντα. Φανόντες οι κατέχοντες ή οι δραπετεύει νεύει. Εν ησυχία Άγιε, γηγενή σου δις αυτούς ειδήσετε.
Τον εμών θείον διαμηνήσω, γυρνός κι σφέφ ο βίος ή. Μέγιστος κίνδυνος, μέγιστον κέρδος. 50% λείψετε.
Δυσπετώ το βίο, λέγω εμ' αυτό, ευρέ την ασχολία.
We live, just like that, and just like that, we should be live.
Ίστα έχω ευποδία και ημί καλήφωνος. Ο πατήρ μου έλεγε δίν με δίνε εις θέατρο. Ήδ του τον εκπληκτικών άνθρωπο, σπουδαίος χοροδιδάσκαλος, ως της Ιων τε διδάξιν άπαντας.
Ουχή, ήκουσα την ευήθειαν ταύτην και των πρώτερων. Μέληση ποιην περί βιδαύρου.
Διατί ουχή, αρούν ούκ υπερφροντίζεις.
Τι ακριβής τελείως, ούκα έστιμη σπουδαίων. Ο εμός πατήρ ουδεμία συναλλαγή είχε μετά του θεάτρου.
Ο σως πατήρ ήστα ανέσχυντος κλέπτης ύπων. Όποτε απεπειράθη πολίσων μία κάμιλον λέγον είναι περσικών υπάριον. Διούσι διαφόρος εκεί. Επίουν και σε...
Alright, so I just put that we're going to do Mycenaen history. So here it is right here. Mycenaen, wander the remnants of Mycenaen, a place that was in ruins even in the time of antiquity, so it's really old. Just reading all these side facts on the screen. We almost there. We're almost there. Alright, so we're in Corinthia. So it says, okay, here we go. Region Argolis.
Traveler, to the ruins of Mycenaen. It is humbling to stand in the remnants of such a great civilization. Looking at these ruins, I am reminded that the past is never as far behind us as we think. These are the ruins of Mycenaen, center of the old Mycenaean civilization. It was home to great warriors and heroes. In many ways, places like Athens and Sparta stand on the shoulders of its accomplishments. This tour will take you through its ruins and introduce you to its most important monuments, revealing its history in the process. I hope you enjoy yourself. I'll be waiting for you at the end of your visit.
The Mycenaean civilization flourished in the Late Bronze Age between 1600 and 1200 BCE. During this period, it was mainly located in the Peloponnese and central Greece. Mycenaeans were known for exploring distant lands. Notably, they battled the Hittite allied city of Walusa in a conflict that was believed to be the inspiration for Homer's Trojan War.
They battled the Hittites,
but the Mycenaean people
the
didn't
Hittite
only
allies.
travel to fight. They learned much from their neighbors, the Minoans of Crete, such as how to write syllabic script on clay tablets. Such tablets provide evidence that Mycenaeans spoke an early form of Greek. They also tell of how great Mycenaean kings ruled over their warriors from opulent palaces in places like Mycenae, Thebes, and Knossos.
Knossos, yeah. So that Thebes they're talking about is not in Egypt. It's the one in Greece. There's more than one. But this is a Mycenaean crater depicting aristocrats driving chariots. 1375, 1350 BCE from the Mycenaean period. So aristocrats, so we're seeing the classism. It says Mycenaean warriors roamed the seas on 20 to 50 oared galleys. Knowledge about their various ventures abroad can be traced back to many sources, such as cargo from Bronze Age shipwrecks and Egyptian pharaonic artifacts discovered in Mycenaean palaces. Okay, so this is an old civilization, Mediterranean civilization that had contact with the ancient Egyptians. And it talked about the people of Crete, the Minoans, as well. And I also heard her say something about the Hittites. So these are very old people.
The entrance to Agamemnon's citadel, or the Lion Gate, is one of the most iconic monuments in Mycenae. It is impressive for both its height and for the intimidating rendering on its relief, which depicts two lions standing on either side of a column. Unfortunately, the lions' heads, which were presumably made of a precious metal or higher quality stone,
lions only come from Africa, if I'm not mistaken.
The gate was most likely meant to greet a triumphant king returning home from successful military campaigns and to awe foreign visitors.
So if they got lions, let me see, because I think lions are only from Africa. I know in like Southeast Asia you'll get like big cats and stuff like that. Let me see. Okay, so you can also find lions over there too. But I want to know their origins. Lions once ranged from Africa, southern Europe, the Middle East, and parts of India. The lion is a large cat. Let me see. A small, distinct population of Asiatic lions live in India. Historically, lions had a wider range across Africa, Europe, and Asia, but their populations have dramatically declined. Okay. So here we got the Lion Gate of Mycenae. The main entrance of the city. This is from 1250 BCE. So we actually got the image right here. You can see what that looks like. So this is their Lion Gate. It says the Lion Gate was described by the traveler Pausanias in the 2nd century CE. He stated that the two animals on the relief were lions, but it is unknown if their heads were still in place at the time. Because right here, you could tell it's a lion, but the heads are missing on here. It says numerous seals and carved gems from the 13th century BCE depicted similar images of lions, panthers, and griffins. There were also other gates guarded by lions in the eastern Mediterranean, such as the one in Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire. So there we go. And then when I was doing the tour in Egypt, one of those pyramids over there, I don't know if it was Khufu or a later one, they would put like cobras at the top of their structures, like their gates that surrounded the pyramids. All right, let me get an aerial view. All right. Now we making our way inside.
When these shafts were discovered by archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann in 1876, he believed the 6 gold-filled graves to be connected with the family of the great king Agamemnon, even going so far as to proclaim a gold mask he found within to be the death mask of Agamemnon. However, this was refuted by later excavations, which showed that the 19 bodies buried in the shafts dated back to a few hundred years before Agamemnon was even born. In fact, at the time of the body's burial, the Lion Gate and the citadel walls had not even been built yet. It's estimated that the people in the graves were members of the first Mycenaean dynasty. The graves later became a place of worship for Mycenaean kings, who raised walls to protect them. These walls helped preserve several incredible artifacts, including women's jewelry, death masks, and masterfully crafted weapons.
So we got a reproduction of the so-called death mask of Agamemnon by Emile Guillaume, something like that. Sound French. He lived from 1851 to 1924. The guy who reproduced it, but they're saying this mask is from anywhere between 1550 to 1500 BCE, which they call the Mycenaean period. It says the artifacts found in the grave circles are noteworthy for their monetary value, but also because some of them feature detailed fighting and hunting scenes that help historians better understand the life of early Mycenaean elites. Shaft grave burials were eventually abandoned around 1500 BCE and replaced with the more prestigious tholos tombs. All right.
By 1250 BCE, Mycenae was at the height of its power, and its living quarters and workshops were numerous. Houses were built everywhere, from the top of the palace's hill near the king's residence, to the slopes and terraces within the walls, to the nearby hills outside the citadel. At one point, the citadel's walls even had to be enlarged to make room for more quarters. The people who lived inside the citadel were those with high status in either the military, religious, or administrative sectors of the kingdom. This is reflected by the ceramic and metal vessels inside the houses, as well as their painted plastered walls.
So it says this is the citadel of Mycenae around 1250 BCE. This is a painting by Balazs Baloch. So this is his, wow, okay. That almost looks very Middle Eastern in a way, but also Southern European. It says Mycenaean houses rarely had windows and would have been rather dark and poorly ventilated. As a result, most household activities probably took place in the courtyard, in the vestibule, while sacrifices and feasting occurred in the Megaron Hall. Some houses also had basements for storing food, tools, textiles, and other items. So, they didn't make the houses sound too nice.
A traveler seeking an audience with the king would have first ascended a steep ramp from the Lion Gate to the citadel's summit.
This shit's
Here,
fire,
they would
though.
have walked into the palatial complex through a grand entrance called the Propylon. Once inside, their gaze would immediately be drawn to the palace's main hall, a monumental area known as the Megaron. The vividly decorated Megaron, which glittered with precious objects and colorful frescoes in its heyday, was where the king would have received the traveler. If the king was feeling generous, he would have shared with the visitor the palace's most marvelous feature, its commanding and majestic view, which stretched from the plain of Argolis to the gleaming Aegean Sea.
It says this is the Megaron of Mycenae. So the Megaron Palace was an architectural wonder in its time, especially in regards to the preparation work that had to be done before its construction. The hill the palace was built on was steep and rugged, so some of the buildings had to be placed on artificial terraces, supported by walls. Unfortunately, these preparations did not save the palace from an earthquake around 1200 BCE. The quake destroyed much of the structure, including part of the domos and protomos. As a result, historians have had to draw comparisons with better preserved palaces across Greece to fully reconstruct the palace in Mycenae. The hill the palace was built on was steep and rugged, so some of the buildings had to be placed on artificial terraces supported by walls. Okay, and then the earthquake comes through and destroys it, or at least some of it. So this is the last station right here. I'm just going to take a look how they redesigned it. Yeah, I think that's fire. The architecture, that's fire.
It was in this palace where a legendary Mycenaean king like Agamemnon would have held court.
They keep
According
on
to
bringing
Homer
up
and other
Agamemnon.
poets, Agamemnon led the Greeks in the sack of Troy.
Okay.
Stories say that he was a fearsome warrior on par with Achilles, but also an overly ambitious and arrogant ruler. He sacrificed his own daughter, Iphigenia, to convince Artemis to grant his ship's passage to Troy.
Wow.
After conquering the city, he returned to Mycenae with mounds of riches, and a Trojan named Cassandra as his concubine. Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra, was not pleased with her husband's sacrifice of their daughter. She plotted to murder her husband out of anger. The plot was successful, and, depending on the version of the story, Agamemnon was either murdered in his bath by Clytemnestra or killed by his cousin Aegisthus during a banquet.
Okay, damn. Yo, so this dude is a big deal, this Agamemnon dude. So this is a painting, an oil painting by Gauli Giovanni Battista. He lived from 1639 to 1709. Where was this dude from? You gotta be Spanish or something, or Italian. Giovanni Battista, Gauli Giovanni Battista. Okay, so it says the quarrel between Agamemnon and Achilles. It says while Agamemnon is one of the principal characters in the Iliad, his development from a harsh, stubborn leader to a wise and confident ruler is mostly overshadowed by the exploits of Achilles. Despite attempts to link buildings and artifacts from Mycenae with the legendary Agamemnon, there is no conclusive proof of a historical Mycenaean king who could have inspired the Homeric character. Hold on. I'm gonna start over. So while Agamemnon is one of the principal characters in the Iliad, so I'm trying to figure out, is he a real person? Because the Torah was talking about him like he's a real person, but this is suggesting maybe he's not a real person. So despite attempts to link buildings and artifacts from Mycenae with the legendary Agamemnon, there is no conclusive proof of a historical Mycenaean king who could have inspired the Homeric character. Nevertheless, there are some clues that such a ruler existed. Some Hittite letters mention a great king of Ahiyawa, as well as everlasting disputes over the town of Walusa, which is believed by modern scholars to be the inspiration for Homer's Troy. Okay. Alright, I understand that. About to take the quiz. Try to go 3 for 3. I've been going 2 for 3, so we're gonna try to go 3 for 3.
You've completed the tour. I trust it was an eye-opening experience. Though it did not last, Mycenaen was a sort of precursor to what would eventually become the Greek civilization we know today. It's important we remember them, if only to avoid repeating their mistakes. Now, what else would you like to do?
Let's take that
Then
quiz.
let's begin. First, I have quite a simple question.
Alright.
Which ancient city may have been the inspiration for Homer's depiction of Troy?
Wilusa.
Yes, the Mycenaeans' conflict with the city of Wilusa allegedly inspired Homer's Trojan War. Now, for the second question. Agamemnon sacrificed his daughter Iphigenia to convince which god to allow him to proceed to Troy?
Damn. The only one that looks is either Artemis or Apollo. I'm leaning toward Artemis.
Yes. Agamemnon sacrificed Iphigenia to reconcile with Artemis, who then allowed his ships to pass to Troy. Now, one last question.
We gotta get this one.
What was the name of Agamemnon's Trojan concubine?
Come on, that's light work.
Iphigenia was Agamemnon's
Oh,
daughter.
shit.
Try again.
Dang, I got it wrong. What was her name? Was it Cassandra? It was Cassandra.
Correct. Following the sack of Troy, Agamemnon sailed home with the Trojan prophetess named Cassandra. You've studied the ruins well, traveler.
I went 2 for 3 again, man. Every damn time. 2 for 3.
Then, I suppose this is farewell. At least for now. Safe travels.
I might do another one. So we just unlocked Pythagoras. So who am I right now? This is Socrates. So I'm Socrates right now, so I'm gonna switch over to Pythagoras. So that was Mycenaen. The civilization lasted from about 1700 to 1200. So they were contemporaries with the Hittites, with the Egyptians, also with the Minoans for a little bit. So what tour would I get into next? Probably myths. Probably gods and loves. We would go into myths. How long we been on here for? 22 minutes? Okay. Let's do it. We're gonna go to the next tour. We're gonna double up on this one. It says objection. Hearings and trials were held in Athens for inanimate objects that had caused deaths. That's crazy. The art of speech, democracy, political battles, and citizens' right to speak in public led the Greek philosophers to teach public speaking techniques. Okay. So they used to get out there in the streets and just straight up battle. They used to work on their skills, their speech. Alright, so this is about to be about the gods and love now. So again, we're Socrates. This is Socrates, how they got him. Let me take a quick aerial. So we see the land is extremely mountainous. A bunch of islands and mountains everywhere. Corinthia. Alright, so we'll explore the Corinth and discovered the relationship between the gods and romance.
Hello, my friend. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Corinth's Temple of Aphrodite. Why, I'm Marcos, of course, one of the most successful merchants in all of Greece. You really haven't heard of me? My name is known from Kefalonia to Kos. If you've ever paid money for something, I probably received a percentage. But enough about me. Let's go back to
That
what
boy
you're
get
doing
money.
here. It really is a lovely sight, isn't it? The temple, that is, not the ladies. Although they are also lovely. Lovely and lively and, I'm sorry, what were we talking about? In Greece, many love stories were told about the gods. How romantic. Sometimes they were heartwarming and happy, but they often ended in tears, tragedy, and a whole brood of illegitimate children. I'm looking at you, Zeus! Anyway, this tour will introduce you to some of these divine love stories, which may give you perspective on how the Greeks approached love in their own lives. Enjoy your visit, my friend. I'll come see you again when you finish the tour.
Damn. You introduced that real well. It sounded like it's about to be fire. Dang, you just bumped into the lady like that? Yo, bro, I should smack you. Oh, that's Marcos. Oh, he's bugging.
Much like Athens, Corinth had its own acropolis, called the Acrocorinth. The natural promontory provided an excellent view of the surrounding territory. It was also the home of several sanctuaries, allegedly constructed in the 6th century BCE. The Acrocorinth's most famous attraction was the Temple of Aphrodite. Pausanias describes it as having statues of Aphrodite, her son Eros, and the sun god Helios. According to Strabo, the temple's most distinguishing feature was its servants, who acted as sacred prostitutes. However, Strabo is the only source for this information, and it is still hotly debated to this day.
Strabo. Here we go. We only got 3 stations. This is the general view of the ancient Corinth and Acrocorinth. Pictures attributed to Constantine Demetrios, 1870, Paris. Okay, so I could see the little remnants of it, like the pillars. I gotta get my architectural terminology up. It says, on the eve of the battle of Salamis, the situation for the Greeks felt hopeless. After their loss at Thermopylae, the Persian king Xerxes' advance seemed unstoppable. Seeking solace in religion, the women of Corinth gathered at the temple of Aphrodite. According to the authors Pindar, Plutarch, and Athenaeus, the women prayed to the goddess, begging her for something, anything, to stop the Persian invasion. It seems their prayers were answered, and the Battle of Salamis ended with a glorious victory for the Greeks. So this is the Acrocorinth. We're going to the second one.
Love played a large role in countless mythological stories. Zeus himself was not immune to the feeling, and fell for both mortals and other deities. Some myths centered on forbidden feelings that led to tragedy, such as Phaedra's love for her stepson Hippolytus. While marriage was prominent in mythology, it was usually presented as problematic. For example, Aphrodite frequently cheated on her husband Hephaestus, and Medea's resentment against her ex-husband Jason eventually drove her mad enough to murder her children. These less-than-ideal depictions reflected the Greeks' idea of marriage which they viewed as a civic duty instead of a romantic union.
Yeah, it be like that, man. Nobody be talking about the other side of things. Everybody just want to choose one side of it. Nah, show both sides of it. So this is a scene of Zeus running after a woman from a red-figured crater, 450 to 430 BCE, classical Greece. That's crazy. Zeus is chasing after a woman. Now, is he trying to strike her, or is he trying to get her back? Which one? God's love and seduction. The Homeric hymn to Aphrodite, which dates back to the 7th or 6th century BCE, tells a story of the goddess succumbing to the charms of a mortal man named Anchises. But upon Aphrodite herself, Zeus cast sweet desire to be joined in love with a mortal man, to the end that very soon not even she should be innocent of a mortal's love, lest laughter-loving Aphrodite should one day softly smile and say mockingly among all the gods that she had joined the gods in love with mortal women who bear sons of death to the deathless gods, and had mated the goddesses with mortal men. And so he put in her heart sweet desire for Anchises, who at that time among the steep hills of many-fountained Ida was tending cattle, and in shape was like the immortal gods. Therefore, when laughter-loving Aphrodite saw him, she loved him, and terribly desire seized her in her heart. Okay. Let's go to the last one. And wrap this tour up. Take this quiz, get up out of here. So I'm pretty sure, yep, this is the temple. This is the temple of Aphrodite. This is Marcos right here. Let me talk to him real quick.
I'm busy right now, my friend. Come talk to me later.
Oh, that's messed up, bro.
I'm busy right now, my friend. Come talk to me later.
Alright, bet. Oh, damn.
The goddess Aphrodite was one of the mightiest Olympians and was typically associated with love, beauty, and sex. She was worshipped all across the ancient Mediterranean by men and women, both young and old. Her origins differ depending on the version of the story. The poet Hesiod says that she was born from the severed genitals of Uranus, while Homer's version of the myth names her as the daughter of Zeus and Dione. Aphrodite appeared regularly in mythological stories and had many mortal lovers. Her favorite was Adonis, a beautiful boy who died tragically in a hunting accident. Aphrodite was devastated by his death, so she created a cult called the Adonia to commemorate him.
That's a pretty fire story right there. So this is a marble statue of Aphrodite inspired by the Aphrodite of Praxiteles, 360 BCE, classical Greece. So it says Eros was the god of sexual love, according to ancient poets like Alcman, Ibycos, and Sappho. He was young and beautiful, but also cunning, unpredictable, and cruel. The tragedian Euripides later introduced the concept that Eros wielded a bow and arrows that induced feelings of love in whoever they struck. Eros was also a god of fertility and was also allegedly celebrated in places like Thespiae, Athens, and Elis. On vases and in other art, he was usually depicted as winged and boyish, and was often represented alongside Aphrodite. He was also associated with women, domestic scenes, and weddings. Depending on the myth, he has had various and different mothers, including Eileithyia, Penia, Iris, Aphrodite, and Gaia. Hesiod, meanwhile, believed Eros was a primeval god who emanated from chaos. Alright, they got a lot going on. Alright, let's talk to Marcos. Yo, Marcus.
My friend, good to see you again. I bet you were surprised by some of the stories you heard. For a bunch of immortal beings, the gods certainly were saucy, eh? Tell me if there's anything else I can do for you.
Let's take that quiz.
Is that so, my friend? Then let's get started. Which poet said that Aphrodite was the daughter of Zeus and Dione? Hesiodos's version of this story said Aphrodite was the product of Uranos's
got it wrong.
chopped olives, so to speak. So, no.
Who said it? Phidias?
I'm afraid Phidias was a sculptor.
Damn.
Try again.
Yeah, I'm tired, man.
Yes, it was Homer who said Aphrodite was a child of Zeus. On to the next question. Medea was married to which legendary hero?
I got no idea.
Pelops was a one-woman kind of man, but that woman was Hippodamia, not Medea. Keep trying.
Sheesh, what was the question, bro?
Medea was married to which legendary hero?
I don't even know who Medea is.
Odysseus was married to Penelope.
This is crazy.
Yes, Medea was married to Iason, but after he left her
Iason,
for someone else,
what?
she resented him so much she murdered their children. But let's not talk about such depressing things. Instead, you can answer this last question. What was the name
We
of
0 for
Corinth's
2 right now.
Acropolis?
The Acro-Corinth.
Correct. The Acro-Corinth has been home to
I
many
went
sanctuaries,
1 for 3.
as well as the famous Temple of Aphrodite. You passed the test. Congratulations, my intelligent friend.
Alright, that's
Normally,
it, man.
I
Getting
don't
up
let
out of
people
here.
go until they buy a souvenir. But for you, my friend, I'll make an exception.
Alright, so that was Marcos. We just went on that second tour. And we just unlocked an Athenian woman. So let me switch up the character. Alright. Take one quick look. This is the Temple of Aphrodite.
Τι λαμβάνει η χώρα μεταξύ τριών βαθμίδων. Τι συνεκτιμείς εδεών.
Alright, we out of here.